rosse bandiere, o proletari alla riscossa, bandiera rossa trionferà. Bandiera rossa deve trionfare, bandiera rossa deve trionfare, bandiera rossa deve trionfare, e viva il comunismo e la libertà, avanti il popolo alla riscossa, bandiera rossa, bandiera rossa.
Right. There's nobody on our list now. Yes, Raymond.
Je vais bien essayer de dire quelques mots par rapport à certains points qui ont été soulevés. Bon, je pense que Greg a fait une très... Moi, je me reconnais tout à fait dans la description qu'a fait Greg de la situation en France, même si je suis en désaccord total avec sa conclusion, mais je ne vais pas argumenter ici. Je crois que tout le monde a bien compris. I will try in English. I said I generally agree with all the analysis of the French situation made by Greg, except I don't agree with the political conclusions. But I think it's a very balanced description and analysis of the situation and the different political organizations and so and so. About the yellow vest, to say some words after the questions of Temos. The yellow vest was organized in this way. At the basis, you have people on the crossroads, and at the national level, you have people with big audiences on the social networks, and between the two, nothing. And the people don't want to have something because they don't trust to be represented by somebody. So they follow one. I said one kind of speaker in the social networks. If they disagree, they choose another one, and so on. So it was organized like that, and they refuse to have a classic structure. So in this movement, the far left try to force the people to have a kind of a formal organization. And in fact, you have 2 or 3 national meetings, but we were on the exclusive control of the anarchists. Some trends of anarchy. I don't explain the details, but some anarchist trends, and but without the main groups. So it collapsed, and in this movement, the left play a very bad role, because in the first time they refused to support the movement, saying that it was a kind of a neo-fascist movement, and in the second time they tried to manipulate the movement, and they play a negative role, and at the end of after some months, the working class layer in the not layer the working class not layer in the movement were replaced by kind of a classical far left milieu and so on, and the movement was finished. So I think it's difficult, and nobody at this stage is ready to be involved in this kind of movement in a useful way. I think it's what we try to do at our level, but no organization play any role in this in this movement. Sometimes, fortunately. And some on the last point, it was about how to organize. It's very difficult. It's about the David question. It's very difficult because we are very small. So at this stage, we try to give ideas to say how the main organization must do if they want to have links with the working class, more or less. And we do kind of propaganda around this issue. But in fact, the situation and at the local level where we are, we try to organize the things this way. But it's very teeny at this stage. And the main problem, it's that the idea to organize, to do something and to take the working class as a political factor has no support in the left at this stage. So the simple women battle, it's about is to say the class struggle still exists. The working class must take part, must have the main role in this, and we are a teeny minority around the ideas. So our goal it's the state power, not for us but for the working class, but it's not for today nor for tomorrow. In this respect, I have a kind of disagreement with the title of this meeting, who has something like Coming French Revolution or something like that, because there is no revolution without a revolutionary party and without revolution organization of the working class. And at this stage, we have no one of those elements.
Olivier, do you want to speak?
Yes, it's about the nature of the mobilization with gilets jaunes, yellow vest. We have to say it at. It's okay?
Yes, go on.
Okay. You have to say it at the explosion of people who never were organized in the labor movement, or people who used to be organized some years away and who are no more. And it was mainly vital about the question of means of living, wages, jobs, and in a way, when the workers, the official workers movement is unable to resist to the onslaught by the bosses, and it was a very raw people with a very low consciousness, but so it's very complicated because you have to make all the elementary education for what is a union, what is how to fight, how to organize, what is politics, what is trade union, and so on and so on. And it's a very so. What of the main success? It's the fascists didn't succeed to have gains in that movement. Fascists tried, but they failed. And but the difficult part is that it's very difficult to organize that movement. So I think that the best we can do is to convince people to come in the union, to come to one local campaign for public services, or to take initiative in politics when you have a local left list based upon what is remaining of the left and stuff like that. But it started very it started very low, but with a big row. It's a failure of political capitalism in France to give legitimacy to all the labor ideology. People want bread, they want house, they want the right to go on holidays, they want a job, they want a pension, stuff, elementary stuff like that. And we have to make it progress all the way. I can give an example. In last year, I went to the Central School at CGT for a session, and in the evening there was a film project, a showing of a film made by two militants of the Communist Party about the Yellow Vest. And after the showing of the film, there were debate in the room, and the public was made of skilled trade unionists and experienced trade unionists, and a big part of them refused to see what was going on, because they refused to accept that the big CGT didn't succeed to organize the big reality of all the number of the French working class. And it was very funny, as a very amazing discussion. That's all.
All right. Seems we have nobody on our list at the moment. Any comrades want to speak? I think there is the question of the EU, where Raymond has a particular position. Do we want to maybe broaden the discussion? Raymond, do you want to speak? Do you want to explain about that?
Je ne sais pas si c'était intéressant de se focaliser là-dessus, mais moi, ce que je pense, c'est que on peut avoir deux approches.
But we can have two different approaches.
Oui, on peut avoir une approche. Excuse-moi, on peut avoir une approche qui tente et qui essaye d'intervenir politiquement dans les conjonctures politiques, et une approche.
We can have one approach which tries to intervene in the politics at the present.
Et l'autre qui est, je dirais, plus propagandiste, qui est de comment dire, de faire de la propagande générale pour des idées futures, mais à mon avis extrêmement abstraites.
But we could have another approach which is to develop propaganda for ideas of the future, but that's a bit more abstract.
Bon, alors je sais que c'est un débat que vous avez eu en Grande-Bretagne. Moi, je me sens beaucoup plus proche sur ce plan-là d'autres tendances qui ont pu s'exprimer autour de la question de l'Union européenne dans les derniers temps.
That means Raymond is closer to some of the tendencies in England, in Britain, who have expressed a tendency towards opposition to the European Union.
Bon, je pense que c'est, je me permets de le dire parce que je sais que des Britanniques pensent comme moi. Je pense que c'est l'erreur stratégique qu'a fait le Labour Party et qu'a fait Jeremy Corbyn, évidemment. C'est pour ça qu'ils ont échoué.
Raymond is for the position of which party?
Je pense que l'erreur stratégique de Jeremy Corbyn, ça a été d'avoir une autre position.
Sorry, yes, okay. He sort of supports the approach that Jeremy Corbyn took towards the question.
Donc, Donc voilà, je pense que les questions se posent concrètement, surtout quand on est dans des partis politiques qui essayent d'accéder au pouvoir. La question, c'est qu'est-ce que vous allez faire?
The question poses itself concretely. What are you going to do about it?
Et répondre je suis pour l'internationalisme dans l'an 3000, c'est pas une réponse.
And to present yourself that you're for internationalism is not really a concrete response to the question.
Je dis pas ça pour toi, Greg. Hein. Je fais une remarque d'ordre général parce que je sais que c'est un point et que on était en désaccord entre nous avec les autres camarades ici sur ce sujet, en tout cas d'après ce que j'ai lu dans leurs documents.
It recognizes that this is a difference from the point, a difference with Greg over this question.
Je pense avec beaucoup de monde ici, pas que avec Greg. Je disais, c'est pas spécialement.
He recognizes that it's not just with Greg, it's with a lot of people in this meeting.
Si je prends par exemple la brochure du WIN sur le Parti travailliste qui vient de sortir, je trouve qu'elle passe. En français, on a un mot, on dit on met la question sous le tapis. Elle évacue ce problème-là.
The brochure of WIN on this question?
Sur le parti I mean the pamphlet of WIN on the Labour Party.
On the Labour Party, yeah, okay.
Don't take this issue.
It doesn't deal with the issue. It doesn't deal with the issue. Yeah, okay.
And, donc voilà, c'est ça mon point. Et si je peux être un petit peu provocateur, mais vous remarquerez quand même que dans les révolutions qui ont fonctionné dans l'histoire, il n'y en a pas eu beaucoup. Les seules qui ont fonctionné, c'était des révolutions pour la démocratie et pour la souveraineté nationale.
Okay, I'm being Raymond's saying I'm being a bit provocative here, but the part of the revolution is a revolution for democracy, and that's got an international significance.
Si je prends par exemple l'exemple de la Commune de Paris, la Commune de Paris, c'était pour continuer la guerre contre les Allemands qu'il y a eu que la classe ouvrière elle a pris le pouvoir.
The part of the objective of the Paris Commune was to continue the war against Germany.
Et la bourgeoisie avait trahi, comme elle a trahi en 1940, etc.
And the bourgeoisie, je comprends pas la trahi.
They were traitors.
They were traitors. They were traitors to that objective. I see. Yeah.
And it's the reason why the working class take the power.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, well, the differences are around this kind of issue. But I will je veux rassurer les camarades.
I reassure the comrades.
Don't be afraid. I'm not become a nationalist since some months.
Okay.
And we do a lot of international work with other people in Algeria, in Lebanon, and so on. In Southern, we try to fight for democracy and cross the border.
Phil, would you like to speak?
Yes, very briefly, Roger. I think this question of the European Union, and in particular of the euro, is very complex and it requires a discussion of its own. It's impossible at a meeting such as this to clarify all the issues that arise. There was a lot of discussion in WIN about the European Union, and material was published and discussed over many years. But the effect in Britain was devastating. It split the Labour movement. It enabled Johnson and the right wing in British society not only to come to power, but to control a big majority. The damage was devastating. But when the campaign began, it was a civil war inside the Tory party that should have been spotted and recognised for what it was initially. Because when the campaign got underway, there was so much confusion that the Labour Party, trade unions, the British working class was too far down the road for the issues to be clarified that enabled Johnson and Company to win. At the very first hint of a campaign to leave the European Union, there must be already initially a campaign to recognise what's going on. It's an attempt, originally Le Pen, of course, preached this thing about leaving the European Union. We must recognise what's going on, and very early on, not to become confused, not to mix up what's a right-wing campaign with the genuine.
Already finished.
Good. So I think just the point that I would like to make is this needs a lot of discussion. It's a difficult issue and a complex issue, and it won't be resolved at this meeting. And it would be, there's so many lessons in the UK. It would be a disaster in France if similar mistakes were made. It's not necessary to make the same mistakes, so we must have the discussion now. It's okay for Raymond to say now that he agrees with Corbyn's position, but Corbyn had many positions. Corbyn was very unclear on the European Union from the outset. And at the end, his position was quite contradictory. But whether he was right or wrong is not a question for discussion at this meeting. It's a question we need to recognise that where Corbyn ended up, where the Labour Party ended up, where the trade union movement ended up, where the working class ended up in Britain, is a very difficult situation with tremendous splits. The Labour Party has been devastated by this. So we need to make sure that a similar process does not occur in France. And that requires a discussion now about the meaning of this campaign at its early stages. Now, it's not early in terms of Le Pen. She's been campaigning on this for a while, but it's early in terms of recognising what's happening inside the working class. So the lessons are in Britain. There has been a lot of discussion about this in the British situation, and we need to discuss it also in terms of France. So I think it needs another discussion, a fuller discussion about the meaning of what's going on. We've seen the first hints under the terminology of national sovereignty. We need to recognise what it's going to mean in the future in terms of splits in the French working class and division along lines that we don't want to see. We want to see a united class, a united campaign, and we don't want to see the same result happen in Britain. And what happened in Britain happened because of confusion on the left very early on in the campaign, and it became too late then to remedy it in the later stages of the voting process.
Yeah, thanks, Finn. Greg, you want to come in?
Yeah, I can see why internationalism can seem like abstract propaganda, and it's not abstract to me, but certainly to the mass of the working people, it's a pretty abstract idea. Why? Because, as I tried to say before, the basic impulse behind this national sovereignism movement, and basically the nationalist reflex, is to say, well, it's not a question of racism. Of course, there are racists, but most workers who go for this kind of idea, this populist propaganda, it's not out of racism. What they say is, look, there's maybe 4, 5, who knows, million people out of work. The hospitals are in crisis, the schools are in crisis, the pension schemes are in crisis. There doesn't seem to be enough money to go around. We're kind of sliding down. And they would say to themselves, well, it's not a question of racism, but in such circumstances, is it a good idea to open the national frontiers should be open to trade and migration to the way it is now? And the general conclusion, which I would say 90% of workers would say, is it certainly doesn't help. Okay? Now, if you say to someone, and this is where it does get abstract, if you say, well, look, it's not the foreign workers who are taking your jobs. It's not the foreign workers who've been cutting hospital budgets. It's not the foreign workers who've been, who are responsible for the housing crisis. These are the capitalists. They're the ones who are in control, and they are the ones responsible for this. And all workers are suffering to this, the consequences of this reactionary policy. Well, workers would be quite open to that kind of idea. And I think even, reasonably class-conscious workers would say, yeah, I get that. I agree with you. And then they will say, but as you said, the capitalists are in control. They're the ones that make the decisions. Nobody's really suggesting any way of making it so that the capitalists aren't in control. So I come back to my original question, does it help to have all this immigration and all this trade? That's why it's abstract, because it doesn't seem to be a concrete, immediate solution. Now, if you look at history, in fact, the only time when internationalism has become a really concrete kind of identifiable idea and considered as a life and death question by the whole of the sort of advanced working class, at least, periods like the end of the First World War, in a sort of an episodic, fleeting fashion at the time of the Paris Commune, just in relation to France and Germany, even then. And, you know, in other words, of times of international revolution. Otherwise, outside of those periods, internationalism is, you know, not a very realistic proposition, or something which doesn't seem to answer people's ideas properly. I see we have an Irish comrade here, Finbar, hello. Well, James Connolly, wasn't it James Connolly that said, revolutionary socialism is not a practical idea except during a socialist revolution. Now, that's what he means by that. It doesn't seem practical until the cards are down. Now, propaganda is not just propaganda. It's preparing those people who we can reach for that critical stage which James Connolly was talking about. Now, I just don't accept the idea that because it's abstract, because it's not an idea which goes across easily, because it's complicated, that we, instead of, because a correct idea isn't working, if you like, that we should therefore propagate false ideas. Now, the fact is that restoring the French currency, closing the borders off in re-establishing, you know, frontier controls, in other words, leaving the European Union, doing away with the European Union bureaucracy even, would not advance the cause of the working class in France or in any other European country by one iota. On the contrary, by complicating international trade and, you know, creating the sort of mayhem which the British will, you know, are entering into now, will actually result in a worsening of the position of the working people in Europe. That's a fact. So those are the facts. I mean, and, you know, as I say, just because correct ideas might seem abstract or difficult to get across, I don't think we should make any concessions to false nationalistic lies. In other words, we've got to get control of our money back. Now, this argument that says, well, if any attempt at social reform or social revolution, I mean, it would meet with the opposition of the European Union. Big deal, big deal. Even if the European Union wasn't there, by the way, it would also meet with the opposition of the United States of America, which is not in the European Union. In fact, it would result in, meet with the opposition of Putin and just about every capitalist power in the world. It's not because it's the European Union, it's because international capitalism would be hostile to a revolution anywhere. And whether the European Union is there or not doesn't change anything in relation to that. This idea that it's some sort of insurmountable obstacle. And even, by the way, the idea that French governments are hamstrung by European legislation, that is BS, because who is the European Commission? Who's the European Union led by? Representatives of all the national governments. This is just like a phony, you know, dance they do, where they send their finance ministers to Brussels and they make decisions. And then the finance ministers come back and say, don't look at me, it's a decision of the European Union. Well, they're all part of it. What's the European Union? It's just a coalition of an agreement among the capitalist states and the capitalist classes of Europe to run things in their own interests. And as I say, even if we were out of the European Union, all of that would be exactly the same as it was before the European Union ever existed. So, you know, that's my position on Europe. It might, if it seems abstract, that's unfortunate, but it's the truth. And so we should just tell the truth. And we can't get across to everyone, but we can get we should try and get across to who we can get across to. Sorry, I've been a bit long.
Now, just a question.
Yeah.
No answer, just a question. Suppose you take power tomorrow there is a revolution in France, and your group is in the leading position in this revolution. So you take power. What will happen?
A nice idea.
Yes, I promise to support you. What will happen?
What will happen in what respect?
With free trade and with the European, the laws of the European
that would mean,
Union and the currency.
Okay,
and
just in 3 phrases, that would mean the de facto destruction of the European Union. And we would appeal to the working classes of the rest of Europe to do the same as we had done, and to reorganize Europe on the basis of socialist internationalist cooperation with the capitalists out of power, basically. That's what would happen if ever it came to that. But I'm getting old. I don't know if it'll be me in that position. Anyway.
Can I just say, I think we should have a meeting to discuss the EU, to discuss this question. I think, you know, we should definitely go for that, and I hope all the comrades will participate in that. And I think, you know, we've had 2 hours now. If comrades have any sort of short questions or brief contributions they want to make, otherwise I suggest we ask Raymond, Olivier to come back for a final summing up, a brief summing up. Is that okay with everybody? Anybody want to speak now? Right then, Olivier, do you want to come back and then Olivier? Oh, sorry, Raymond and then Olivier.
I don't care about the order.
Well,
I can.
Okay, Olivier.
Okay, I'm going. Before talking about European Union, we must talk about what to do in France and check down, put down the stopping the government and making and putting him out, and then we will see the next step. That's all for tonight.
Okay.
Moi je dirais qu'en un mot, mais on a à peine effectivement on a à peine commencé, mais je pense qu'il y a plusieurs niveaux de discussion si on veut poursuivre.
There's a lot more discussion that should follow from this.
La première discussion, effectivement, ça peut être sur l'Union européenne, bien que pour vous, pour beaucoup d'entre vous, ce soit un débat un peu.
So there's been a big debate about the European Union tonight.
Ça vient un peu tard, je dirais, pour les camarades britanniques.
And it's probably something. It's too late for the British comrades now.
Mais et l'autre, c'est sur la manière dont on s'oriente, c'est-à-dire dont on peut développer une orientation vis-à-vis de la classe ouvrière et la question de la lutte idéologique.
So the question is how to develop an orientation towards the working class and an approach of struggle for the working class.
Parce que je pense que sur un plan idéologique, aujourd'hui, on est très marginalisé. Et donc,
because for a plan, we're very marginalized.
On the ideological issues.
We're on ideological issues, yeah.
Et donc, à mon avis, une question importante, c'est comment on essaye de réaffirmer une idéologie socialiste adaptée évidemment à la période.
Okay, so and from Raymond's point of view, the important thing is how to adapt socialist ideology for the period that we are in.
Okay. All right, comrades, listen, we've had a very good discussion as usual. I'd just like to say before we close just some of our plans for future. I did say at the beginning, but all the comrades were here. Next week, information will go out, of course, as usual, by email. But we are planning a meeting from the USA again with, I think, obviously, comrades are all aware of the huge uprising that's taken place, the youth uprising around the slogan of Black Lives Matter. But also, I don't know if all the comrades, were aware of the fact that there was a strike, a one-day strike of the longshoremen on the West Coast in solidarity. And that was, I consider that to be a really important development of the beginning of a union of the youth uprising and the black uprising with the trade unions, with a breakthrough in that field too. And I would also like to point out that our South African comrades were instrumental in the passage by the furthest left of the South African Trade Union Federations, SAFTU. They sent a message of solidarity to the West Coast Union, the ILWU, which was actually drafted by our comrades, and that is, I consider that to be a huge step forward in developing international links and an internationalist program. That meeting will take place. We hope to have comrades on the front line from several areas in the USA, and I hope that everybody will participate, and hope we'll get a good turnout and a good discussion. We've got a lot of other ideas planned too, which I won't mention now, but thanks to the comrades for your participation. I think this has been in the best traditions of our group. We have a free, comradely discussion with different points of view being respected by everybody. And I think that way we're achieving, all of us, a higher level of understanding of the issues. So thank all the comrades and see you next week. Okay.
Bye. Thank you.
Più frontiere, sono i confini, rosse bandiere, o proletari alla riscossa, bandiera rossa trionferà.